RKW, Ramon, Kayla, and Will on 104.5 The Zone, live from Tennessee Titans training camp. Appreciate Bill Callahan joining us here on the show just a minute ago. Check out the podcast feed if you missed that. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. Joining us now, the voice of the Titans, Mike Keith. A little bit of Sopranos music, the practice field, practice starting. The vibes are great, Mike. Welcome.
It is always a fantastic day because this is what the game's all about.
That's right.
All the rest of the stuff, it works great, and you got to do it, and you're ramping up, and you're acclimating, and you're evaluating, but this game's played in pads, and there's always going to be someone who is going to be a different player in pads positively because they just like to smack the crap out of people. And you don't know why. I mean, you can look at the measurables and all the different things about they have burst and they have power, but some guys can just hit. They just can. They're not afraid. They don't. They run through you. It's in their heart. I mean, they may not be the best looking physical specimen, but they can just play. And then there are other guys who, look like Mr. Olympia, and once you put the pads on, they're not the same player. The other thing that happens, too, which is really fascinating to me and always has been about the game, is there are some guys who are just as fast, if not faster, in pads. Yeah. They play to their 40 time, and there are a lot of guys who never play to their 40 time once they put pads on. They may run a 4.2 whatever, but they play the game in pads at 4.6.
Yep.
It's wild.
I mean, what do they call it? How you carry your pads. Mm-hmm. The other part of it, too, and Brian Callahan made a good point. He said, you can run 1,000 routes, but you're not used to somebody hanging on you. You're not doing it after you've been kicked and hit and bent over and fallen down and flipped over. The only way to get ready to play football is to wear pads. So 6 padded practices between now and the first preseason game.
I know Ramon Foster is excited about the same thing Bill Callahan is excited about as well, that when pads come on, it is easier to define what a sack is from the offensive line and defensive line perspective. Just going back and reflecting on what he told us a minute ago and how today is very bare bones and simple in terms of the runs that they will install for today, and just wanting to see the aggression and the physicality from the offensive line. Within the ramp-up process, Mike, this is an important first step, but in a lot of ways, this still is very much a first step.
That's a good point, Will, because that's what you're doing. I mean, you saw the 16 third down plays on Saturday, and the defense won. Mm-hmm. The defense is at a pretty big advantage in that situation. Will Levis was not able to complete as many passes because he was under a lot of heat. And it's like, well, yeah, he was. But the defense has advantages, and the defense has advantages early on anyway. But now you'll start to see a lot of the things, and for Bill, I'm sure, you'll start to see a lot of the things he's been teaching and how they've been grasped. So they'll start to add in things, and there'll be some physicality in the run game that you'll want to see. And for all the talk about passing, the Titans are still going to want to be able to run it when they want to run it, when they need to run it. That's still a big part of what this game is you've got to have that ability. And we'll start to see more of that and, see a guy like T'Vondre Sweat. How does T'Vondre Sweat act after 3 plays of full pads?
True.
Getting hit by Skoronski and
them ribs,
Cushenberry, and I mean he's never been blocked by guys quite like this who've been coming at him in pads. What he was doing on Saturday, he was working against guys in shells, and it was hand-to-hand combat, so to speak. Now it's a little different.
We essentially might remove all the excuses now, right? It's straight football.
This is the game.
It is the game. It's been feel like a long offseason. Well, heck, 7 months, right, of just getting to this point now, almost 8 months in. In these 8 months, who are, Mike, the three names you've heard the most, man? Either new guys or even some of the older guys this offseason where you've gone numerous places and this name always comes up for this team?
Well, it's Will Levis first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because he's such a key component in all of this. I mean, let's face it. If the Will Levis thing, taken in the second round, becoming the starting quarterback, if he becomes a franchise quarterback for this team, considering what you will pay him the next 2 years, which is you will pay him in 2 years basically what Tua Tagovailoa is getting times 10 in 1 year, then you have an opportunity to build out this roster. Mm-hmm. And then you have an opportunity to be in position in year 4 when it's time to pay him whatever buku millions of dollars. You're set up to do it because you've allotted for it. So, I mean, all eyes are going to continually be on him. I think Calvin Ridley. Because he's such a difference maker. He's such the element that the Titans have lacked the last 2 years. You know, when they lacked A.J. Brown, they've lacked the speed, the scary guy.
Yeah.
And he's clearly a scary guy. When the Titans were running it well in 19, 20, and 21, the other part of that equation is they had the play action deep shot. But you got to have somebody who can get deep. And Ridley can clearly do that, and he can drive you crazy with the other parts of it. And then I think the name that keeps coming up too is L'Jarius Sneed. I watched the Super Bowl with my wife in Florida, and I said, we need him. I said, we need him.
Well, you got him.
She said, well, why him? I said, well, he does better than anybody else in the game what we want to do at corner. He beats people up.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do. If you're doing that effectively, you give those 5, 6, 7 pass rushers, which we're going to bring 4, 5, 6, whatever, it gives them time to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mike, when it comes to the linebacker position, and we've seen what Kenneth Murray has done early on in practice, but I think impressing coaches, impressing his teammates. We've heard about this playing free. That's what he was brought here to do. Mm-hmm. What have you seen out of him early on that's putting him on the right path to being a contributor to this Titans defense?
Well, shades of what we've seen in part with the Chargers. I mean, he's an unusual athlete. He was that at Oklahoma. He was that at times with the Chargers. He's not the traditional linebacker that you're like, okay, do all these things. I mean, he's a guy with a specific set of skills, a la Liam Neeson. He has a very specific set of skills, and if you can turn those loose, then he can be a devastating player potentially. Mm-hmm. That's why he's here, because he fits this scheme, and that's what they want to do. They want to turn him loose due to that overall athleticism that he has to rush the passer, to go sideline to sideline, to penetrate. He's got a strength that is, I mean, you could see it in his lower body. He just explodes. So that's going to be fun to watch as they get into pads if he can keep doing that, because so far they really haven't been able to handle him in how he's being used. And again, weren't in pads.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, they weren't in pads. We'll see if he's still able to do some of those things. But that's why they wanted him, because it's like that guy, I mean, he can be a havoc wreaker in so many different ways.
Mike, also with just how this team was built this offseason and the draft picks last year, too. You got to throw them into the mix because Josh Wiley, I think, can play a huge part. Mm-hmm. But, Mike, in my coverage as a team since 2020 and being with you guys last year.
And you're going to do sidelines again this year,
if you allow me, Mike.
Yeah.
Can we get an Air 5 on that one?
Air 5.
By the way, I watched The Neighborhood last night, too. I know your son's a writer on that show. If anybody that did not know that, watch that show. Okay.
Thank you. Cedric the Entertainer's kind of talented.
Yeah, he's in there.
He's okay.
Right?
Yeah, Tashina Arnold, she's in there, too. I got some celebrities I know and like in there, too. With that being said, though, Mike, the quality of depth, I feel like, at almost every position. And let's go to the last 5 years. Has it been this deep, considering where this team was and how far it had to go? Because I feel like there's competition at a lot of positions. Like, we're talking about L'Jarius Sneed or Cheeto not being out there, and we got Trey Avery getting routes, right? I mean, we got young rookies having the ability to get reps right now, too. Is this the most you've seen in the last, 5 years?
I don't want to say 5 years, Ramon, because we were pretty good in 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
We probably weren't as deep, but we were certainly veteran. And, what really happened is the salary cap got us, age got us, injuries got us, and that's why the team went downhill the way they did in 2022, particularly the second half of the year, and then in 2023. And you look at us last year, and I tweeted out something when all of my stuff was still taped up in booth 7 when we went into when we went on Saturday. And I tweeted out the roster for the game 7 months ago against Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. I mean, it wasn't very good.
Right.
I mean, how they beat Jacksonville is pretty remarkable because there wasn't a lot of speed. There certainly wasn't a lot of depth. There were a lot of names on that roster that were having to play because they played 86 players. The Titans are better right now than they were talent-wise at any point a year ago, period.
Yeah.
And, I mean, now what does that translate to, Ramon? Does that mean you go up in wins? Do you get the playoffs? Do you have a chance to win the division? Are you the surprise of the league? Or are you better and you don't win any more games than you did last year because everybody around you is tougher? Don't know the answer to that.
Right.
But I know this. This football team is, I think, considerably more talented than they were a year ago. $80 million in cap room will do that for you.
It will. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yes.
You talked about Tavondre Sweat, right?
Yes.
Seeing him in pads. It's always fun to watch now him and Jeff out there. And even offensive line or defensive line coach Tracy Rocker in teaching moments. Immediately after something happens and it's not exactly what he wants, pulls him aside, okay, and then let's go over it again. What have you seen in the small amount of time with Tavondre, now that he's out here and people are trying to break him down, but what do you see out of him?
I mean, he has unlimited talent.
Yeah.
I mean, to be the size man he is and to be able to do some of the things that he can do, we haven't had a lot like him. Jeff's like that, but Jeff's like a power forward. This guy is like a 7'2" center. I mean, there are things that he can do, but can he do it down in, down out? Can he stay healthy during the course of the weeks? Can he keep his weight down? I mean, the questions about Tavondre have been legitimate. Mm-hmm. They were legitimate coming out of Texas, but when you talk about a man who's 6'5" and 350-ish, I mean, whatever the number is, Kayla, he can rush the passer. And the majority of guys that size that you've seen over the years can't do that. They're two-down players. He's potentially a three-down player because he has that sort of ability. But can he stay out there all three downs? The thing that you've watched this a long time now, the thing that you understand is potential is one thing, and injuries cause problems and things like that. But this is a bottom line business. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what this is. It has to happen. It's like the situation for Treylon Burks. We've seen times where he has been outstanding in games. I mean, he was good in, week 2 last year.
Yes.
He had a great game against Green Bay on Thursday night as a rookie. I mean, he has ability. He hasn't been able to stay out there. At a certain point, it just has to happen or it doesn't. And that when you're picked in the second round like Tavondre was, higher than some of the experts thought,
sure.
I mean, you're going to be evaluated in that way. And the questions have been legitimate coming out, and he's got to prove that he can overcome all of those and that those are not right. And listen, it happens every day in the league. It happens every day in the league, and it seems like Baltimore's taken 20 guys over the last 10 years who you had questions about coming out of college. Oh, this guy, I mean, Terrell Suggs.
Right.
He's going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And you've got to take a spin at those people because this is a game decided by 4 to 5 plays. The people who make the 4 to 5 plays are disruptors. That's why you signed Jamal Adams, to see if he's still got that in him. That's why you go get Calvin Ridley, because he can make the one play that you can't make. Tavondre Sweat can be a disruptor who changes games like Jeff does, in a little bit different way, but he can do that. And today is the first day we really start to see where that factors in towards 2024.
I think, Mike, to that point, too, you see so often when the Ravens will draft somebody, you immediately say, oh, that's a Raven.
Oh, yeah.
When the New England Patriots had someone, oh, that's a Patriot.
Sure.
It does feel like on both sides of the ball now, this franchise has an identifiable style where we will go into a draft process and say, oh, that's a Titan. And you mentioned Jamal Adams. It feels like he is someone who certainly fits into that mold.
Absolutely, and I think it's a really good point, Will. And I think Lloyd Cushenberry is the great example of that. Lloyd Cushenberry was the number one target in free agency because they said, this is the guy we want to anchor an offensive line that's not very good. Mm-hmm. Because he's very good. He's a different size player than the normal center. He has different length, but he's also got the makeup of the player we want here. He's going to fight you, but he's also very athletic, and he can hold his own, and he's going to help the two guards. And so you've seen them. I'll give you another one. Sebastian Joseph Day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one, Mike.
Sebastian Joseph Day is a guy who's got an incredibly hard head. I mean, like a Raven, like a Steeler, that type of player that it's really hard to do anything with him. He started 71 games in this league, 40 at nose tackle, 31 at defensive tackle, and all he does is play good football. Yep. He's not spectacular, but he's a Titan in terms of what they want to be. He's going to start. It would be a huge shock if he's not a starter on the defensive line, because he's going to be that player that at the end of the day you'll pick up the box score and you'll say, 2 tackles and a quarterback pressure and maybe a tackle for loss or something, or 3 or 4 tackles. But you will think, having watched the game, he played really well.
Yep.
Because he's penetrated in the backfield and forced a play out wide, or done this, or help make a stop on 3rd and 1, or those sorts of. He's a winning football player.
Yeah.
That's what they're looking for as they try to establish this thing. And they're going to have considerable money next off season as well. So this process is going to continue. Coach Mack, I know, has preached that this is probably going to be a multi-year process of talent acquisition. It's true, and that's why I think people need to kind of manage expectations just a little bit.
Sure.
And then if this year goes better than expected, I mean, if you are a playoff team, then it really gets exciting.
Yeah.
That's right.
Sebastian Joseph Day, also a guy that's super savvy at pulling offensive linemen. Don't ask me how I know.
Here it is again.
He just helped facilitate other people to get sacked. So, yeah, Mike, he does a lot of stuff around the ball.
Yes.
No, I remember playing him in San Diego. Well, they were in L.A. at the time, transitioning.
Well, he played for the Rams and the Chargers, yeah.
And I remember him. He was a guy, to your point, that's savvy. This doesn't make a tackle, but he helps somebody else get free. He's that guy that pulls your shoulder pass to open up the gap right there, and somehow he doesn't get called for holding. I'm not hurt.
He's so hurt.
Look at Mike's face. I wish you could see Mike's face if you're listening.
What you're saying is he's a pro.
He's a pro.
Yeah.
He's a guy who maybe sets a pick too hard.
Yeah. Or when they say hit the ear hole, when he hits the ear hole, like he's literally coming to the side of the helmet, and you're wondering who was that car or bus that hit you. He's that guy.
Well, I mean, if you look at his lower body.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's 6'3", 300 pounds. You say, there's a lot of guys in the league 6'3", 300 pounds. This is a thick, big dude.
I like it.
Who can do some stuff. And again, not the biggest name in free agents,
Right.
but he's a type.
Yeah.
And the Titans in this free agency period have certainly gone after big names, but they very much have had a type.
Mike, real quick on the way out, when Tavondre Sweat learns that the SEC officially noted Texas as TEX
Oh, jeez.
in their all SEC teams and not UT, can we make sure Ashley Farrell, the entire crew, can we get a follow-up on the conversation you all had in the OTP now that Texas is officially TEX?
Do you know that thing, that clip has gotten
so
over
great.
1 million hits?
Is it really? I love it.
It's
It started
so
off,
great.
it was mostly Texas people, and then the Tennessee people finally responded. Finally, I was waiting for them.
Finally.
We
Mo
kept
and I had your
sending it
back.
out,
It's like, where are you people? I'm standing up to this guy who outweighs me by 200 pounds, and I think they were busy with baseball because Texas was out. Tennessee was busy, Texas was out.
There it is.
But now the Vols have responded in kind with quite a history lesson
So
for
great.
the people from Austin.
From Tex.
From
Tex.
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 We'll just
TEX.
refer to them all as Tex.
Tex.
Voice of the Titans, Mike Keith, with us this morning here. Mike, thank you.
Thank you so much,
It's my
Mike.
pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Coming up, we'll get you started as practice gets underway and a safety that has landed elsewhere in the NFL. We'll tell you about that next.